Ladies and gentlemen, this phone has Linux, and today we're going to be talking about how to prevent that big bad spooky government from actually hacking into your phone. Now, a couple days ago, I made a video where I talked about, how the government is buying malware to silently hack your phones. Now, of course, you might be like, but Muda, wouldn't they need a warrant for it? And I'm sure they would. In a normal, lawful society, sure. But I find it weird when government agencies are just buying malware that is used to silently hack into devices. Meaning that they can use zero-click malware, meaning they don't even you don't even have to touch the messages, you don't even have to touch the actual attack. They will leverage background processes in phones to take advantage of vulnerabilities and hack your device. Now, of course, if you're worried about this, and rightfully you should be, how do I take the privacy back? Muda, how do I fight back? Now, there's a couple options here, and I want to walk you through them, okay? Now, there are ways to fight back against the Gestapo, all right? For instance, one of these companies, Purism, is actually releasing what we call Linux phones, a whole bunch of devices that are Linux-oriented. Now, I want to show you what is the coolest part, but also one of the problems with this, okay? And it becomes pretty readily apparent. So go into the Liberty phone right over here. It's like, whoa, 4 gigs of RAM, that's a little low. 128 gigabytes of storage? In 2025, that don't seem like a whole heck of a lot. So let's go to the buy now. And of course, obviously, it's a $2,000 phone. And this is 2,000 US dollars, all right? So extrapolate that wherever you're at. Now, obviously, look, I'm going to be completely real with you here. This is bad value, depending on how you look at it, okay? I would never in a million years recommend to my audience that you should buy a smartphone with these specifications, these low specifications, for a whopping $2,000. I'm pretty sure if you go to like Apple, you'd probably get you could probably get like the iPhone Prolapse at this point for probably around the same price, maybe a little bit more actually because it's Apple, but it's a much better phone. In fact, it's funny to me that even this foldable phone is slightly more expensive than that phone over here. And this comes with actual jam-packed new technology that you shouldn't be taking for granted, okay? It's cool stuff. So what makes this phone worth it for somebody that has $2,000? Well, for instance, if you look at the side over here, you'll notice that it's got kill switches. Now, kill switches are hardware kill switches that they've actually created to basically prevent hardware from functioning on the device, provided the switch is off. So from my understanding, the guys over at Purism are not using software to block stuff, which can always be overridden. So basically, if you're looking at that, little signal bar over there, you can turn off your device's cellular or radio capabilities, effectively disconnecting it from the internet. Disconnect Bluetooth, your Wi-Fi, everything. Disconnect even your actual, front-facing back cameras, and of course the microphone. Everything can be killed. Hardware level, meaning that even if the government decided to hack this phone, because you can disable the network stack, because you can disable every single thing that could be used to tap into your privacy, basically you are buying a phone that can be very private. So for somebody that's like a politician or like a journalist, that $2,000 doesn't seem like a bad idea. But okay, Muda, all right, enough talking about this. Are you shilling this product or no? No, actually, I'm not. In fact, I want to give you guys sort of free options as well. Now, for instance, in a video that I made not too long ago, I want to say like a week at this point, you can actually go and get something known as Graphene OS, which is actually so easy to install, you can go into their web-based USB installer, and of course, follow this guide right over here, provided you have any of these operating systems, which I assume you do. Okay, they cover all versions of Windows over 10, Mac OS, Arch Linux, Linux Mint, everything. And of course, if you go down over here, it will give you all the actual, guides you need. For instance, connect your device. And in this case, we used a Google Pixel, which was actually a bit out of date for this. We unlocked the bootloader, we downloaded the release, and we flashed it. And generally, this works for, again, these pixel-oriented devices. So again, your mileage may vary. Surprisingly, to get the most secure Android phone that is reasonably updated, you have to pick up one of these Google phones and just de-Google it yourself. Thankfully, this does it in a matter of like 5 to 10 minutes. And basically at that point, you will be booted into Graphene OS and you have a pretty secure device. Now we'll look at the device a little bit later because one of the pet things that I wanted to do for this video was just see if we can get Linux installed. Anyways, though, Ubuntu Touch is one option that you can get, which looks like this. And of course, you've got Post-Market OS. So if it's one thing you're looking closely here, you can see that they've kind of got like a cell phone diagram here, but they also showcase a desktop environment. The idea is you kind of get this like Linux phone, but you also can like hook it up with a dock to a monitor, keyboard, mouse, and then basically just use it as an actual computer device. Now, of course, your mileage may fucking vary here, but let's go through the installation. So in order to install this, you want to click that big Get Ubuntu Touch button. And in this little search section, you want to put in actual like devices that you have. So for instance, I'm going to put in OnePlus, which again, the device that I have graciously donated to me by my brother is a OnePlus 6T. It's actually his older phone. It's not supported, but for the sake of showing you this video and sort of walking you through, we can kind of use it. But if your device doesn't show up here, it's probably because it isn't obviously supported, and you probably shouldn't be installing something that is unsupported if you really care about, things working or just the privacy and security. Remember, security requires constant updating. So we're just gonna, for this video, change the filter and get that OnePlus 6T going. So you can see everything basically works on this except for the fingerprint reader, okay? Which is pretty important for security. And of course, obviously, when you read the words abandoned, you probably don't want to install this if you're actually using this on for the long term, okay? This is just for demonstration purposes, of course. So we're going to go down over here and we're going to download one of these like applications. So if you're on Windows, Mac, download this tool. One thing I have noticed for Mac people, their tool doesn't really work. Like Mac doesn't launch it, says it's corrupted. So probably want to run it underneath a Windows VM or just Linux. Now I downloaded the Linux one because obviously I use Linux. And of course the installation's pretty straightforward. You can get your device over here, and if you're on an OnePlus device, you want to go into your Android settings, enable developer mode, which I think you just tap the build number button like 7 times. Go into the developer settings, enable OEM unlocking, especially on this device. Again, that's just particularly for the 160. You want to have a device that can unlock the bootloader. So that basically means none of this Samsung crap, okay? They lock shit down tighter than a drill sergeant's asshole. So once that's done, you power off the device, hold the volume down and power key, and then you'll go to this like recovery screen where you want to at least tap your way to the fast boot. Once your device is in fast boot, plug it into your computer and then follow the directions on the actual application. So since this device isn't automatically detected because it's unsupported, I can just go into the drop-down menu, pick the OnePlus 6T. When it comes to the version of Ubuntu Touch I want to install, I'm just going to pick the stable version, not the daily, because that's the version that will guarantee to work on this device. Then I'm going to delete every single thing on the device because it's a fresh install, and then I'm going to obviously enable the device to be installed through fastboot because that's how it's going to happen. You click next, it'll basically unlock the bootloader if it already hasn't, and then after, a couple changes to the system partitions, it'll then tell you go to the recovery bootloader. So using the actual volume rocker and the power button, navigate on your device and go to unlock bootloader, recovery mode, and just hit that power button, and then you'll boot into the recovery mode. Now, since your device is automatically connected, the app will automatically redetect your device and then start the installation process. And this will usually take like 5 minutes to 10 minutes. I mean, I kind of left the room, came back, and everything was done and my device was booting up. And once it's booted up, you will get access to Linux on your device. So let's strap on the actual old Apple Vision Pro and get a first-person viewpoint of how this stuff works. So all right, let's get the old first-person viewpoint on. I had to re-record it once again just because I didn't have the microphone for syncing here. But anyways, once you have Ubuntu installed, you can pick a language. I've already done it. It'll say, hey, do you have a SIM card? Which I do not have one inside this device for obviously demonstration purposes. We're going to hit skip there. It's going to ask to connect to Wi-Fi. So I'm going to connect it to my home Wi-Fi over here. Preferred name, we're going to call it Mutalunix. There it is. And then, of course, it's going to be like, do you want to create a new password? And just for the sake of stuff over here. Now, one thing I've noticed, it doesn't have the pattern, so we're just going to go no lock code just to make it easier. And here we go. Ubuntu Touch works out of the box. See how there's like no Google like Play like shit required? This is, for the most part, Linux on your actual device. Now, of course, if you look at it really carefully, it might be something that isn't really shocking to many people. Like, I still got to kind of figure it out. But This looks pretty close to regular Android for now. Now, of course, we're going to scroll down, and one thing you see, they've got like a notification drawer. They've got rotation locking, so I guess we'll slap that. Actually, what does it look like when you kind of do this? Okay, so it does do rotation on the main screen. Cool. But we're going to have that completely locked away simply because I do not want to deal with any of the rotation locking nonsense, and I don't even think I can find that option here. Now, one thing is, it does have a flashlight that works. Basically, everything out of the box seems like it works pretty well. So you've got the brightness stuff here, you've got auto adjust, and then, of course, with battery settings, right over here, swipe from the right edge to view your open apps. Okay, whoa, that is weird. Okay, how do we go back to the main? Okay, all right. I'm learning as I go, okay? I really am learning as I go. That's one of the best parts about these kind of videos, okay? Because I like to be the average person jumping into the story. Now, of course, it's got multiple SIM card support. Of course, files over here. So yeah, it's like Android, but obviously it's that Ubuntu Touch to it. Now, of course, let's open up some of these applications. We've got this butterfly application. I don't know exactly what it is. Oh, that's like a web browser, I think. Hold on, google.com. Let's see if we can go. Seems like you were having trouble. Oh, Google. Okay, no, I entered it wrong. Google.com. So, of course, this is the web browser. Things just work out of the box. And I'm pretty sure if you go to YouTube, you can just watch YouTube through this. Now, one of the things with Linux phones is that obviously you are going to be, because applications that are made for Android will usually not work for Linux devices like this, your mileage really is just going to vary. So I guess we'll just go look at cat videos. Hell yeah, dude. Let's look at some pussies. All right, you know what? Actually, everything just works out of the box. The ads are loading. YouTube works out of the box. Now, of course, obviously you might be like, man, Muda, maybe I probably would prefer to just use the actual like application. But you know what? This is, again, the option for you to detach. And again, there really isn't anything Google related on this phone. This is like complete Linux experience that is isolated to just itself. I didn't even need to connect to a Google account just to get things working. So again, this is like the photo application. Now, since I don't want to give you guys motion sickness, and I'm really apologetic for the way that I guerrilla filmed this, next time, probably we'll just stick with a tripod. But the idea here is, obviously, look, you've got app stores with, again, a whole bunch of applications, not obviously as much as what you'd find on, the Play Store or the App Store, but, you've got your maps, you've got some unofficial YouTube applications. Of course, the camera stuff works, and obviously, as a phone, the messaging and the phone applications appear to work pretty normally. There's also a terminal, so if you want that kind of Linux experience in your pocket that isn't just Android, this is, again, fully fledged Linux ARM in your pocket, right? And some of you may prefer that, but generally speaking, I think it's a lot better we go to Graphene OS, simply because this is a smartphone and you probably want to be using it as a smartphone with that elevated level of security. Remember, you can't really get onto things like WhatsApp or a lot of the popular applications that people really enjoy with Android necessarily as easily on something like this. I mean, if you want to browse general social media, the web browser is one thing, but let's go back to Graphene. So generally, if you want to get access to Google Play, even in a sandbox manner, which is how you should be using it, going into their App Store, which again is something provided right over here, you can actually go get Google Play services. So for instance, from their store, just install Google Play services, and even if you want the Google Play Store, which also installs alongside it, you can basically get everything basically locked into its own little sandbox. Now, I think obviously this is a far better option than just using the Linux phone, because obviously I think the Linux phone is a little bit too cumbersome, okay? Unless you get used to the weird wonkiness of it, maybe. But because this is just Android, you can see that Google is now running, sandboxed as all hell, meaning that I can just go to the Play Store and without Google really knowing what it is and what I don't want to do, they basically are limited on this device pretty heavily. Now again, even in the future, when like Google prevents you from installing an APK without their approval, that doesn't stop you from just installing applications yourself. Now, this is where the real crux of this video title really comes from, right? Now, I'm not going to say anything is unhackable. Obviously, everything can be hacked, right? There probably is a 0-day sitting around somewhere that organizations have access to. But to give you a quick idea, right, law enforcement agencies typically don't like things like the Google Pixel, specifically the cops in Spain, who were profiling people based on their phones. And again, when they saw the Google Pixel devices, they associated it because those, users, especially people that cared about their privacy, whether for legal or illegal reasons, were using Graphene OS, which obviously pisses off law enforcement because it is very resistant against a lot of their hacking attempts. In fact, what's funny is looking up the company Cellebrite, which I actually talked about, in the prior video when I talked about, these organizations that sell malware to law enforcement agencies. And they start using, again, terminologies like AFU, BFU, which is, before your devices first unlock when things are very encrypted. And then obviously after you enter a code, you sign into your device for the first time. If you ever notice, fire up your iPhone, log in for the first time, there's usually a hitch. It's because the device is entering the sort of like more relaxed state. But of course, even when it comes to organizations like Cellebrite, they'll even bring up the fact that, listen, some of these devices have a lot of features put in, right? Like features that are deciding to encrypt users and protect them. And they're saying, sadly, it's becoming the new norm. Like even the company that wants to hack you, right? They're out there basically pitching this to you, to their clients, which would be law enforcement agencies, and saying, listen, there are devices that are becoming more resistant, but just having base Android isn't enough. So on the Graphene OS discussion forums, one of the funniest things that I read was apparently Graphene OS was specifically called out by, again, Cellebrite, where they just literally could not get into it. So they provided this graphic, right, which you can pull up, where again they list standard Android operating systems. But of course, when it comes to Graphene OS, this is, regardless, the one operating system that absolutely poses, a lot of threat to these, law enforcement, the glowies, right, basically, because if they want to get access to your device, or even if a hacker wants to get access to your device, it's not to say Graphene OS is the silver bullet or just having like a hardened Linux phone, but because these guys are getting pissed off, you're already doing the right thing. So don't get lazy or complacent. If this is enough to piss off the federal agencies, if it's enough to piss these guys off, absolutely take advantage of it. Because again, your privacy and security fucking matters, okay? And I'm not about to let some, company from fucking Israel start to hack the entire fucking world on behalf of the governments that pimp us out to them, okay? Whether that be the Canadians, whether that be the fucking Americans, the Brits, whatever, I don't give a shit, okay? It doesn't matter. No organization, no government should be allowed to spy on their fucking citizens, all right? Unless they're willing to rename themselves to the fucking Fourth Reich, all right? Simple as that. Or unless they're deciding to just say, all right, fuck it, we're about to be a totalitarian state, y'all better fucking play along and do the 2-minute hate. You might as well enjoy living in 1984. But there are ways to fight back. And Graphene OS is just one of many ways, easy ways that you can fight back if you really want to. Now I'm going to escape the, the AR Matrix sucks. Now I'm going to escape that because this video's gone on longer than it has to be. But ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to show you a bunch of different devices. I wanted to show you how you can secure your Linux, your phone life a little bit from the ever-prying eyes of the big bad government, or actually just criminals in general. Now, of course, there's ways for you to get Linux on your device, but generally, look, if you don't want to shell out $2,000 for a hardware switching device, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of you that don't, just go get yourself, like a Pixel. Doesn't have to be a new one. Just anything that is supported. Could even be like a year or two older. Install Graphene OS, and generally you'll be a lot safer. If this is pissing off cops, it's probably for a good reason. But ladies and gentlemen, this is me, Mutahar. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Just like if you dislike it, I am out.